Good afternoon. Welcome. I'm Nicola Longford, CEO of the Sixth Floor Museum at Dealey Plaza. And on behalf of the board and our staff, we thank you so much for being here on the 62nd anniversary and remembrance commemoration of President John F. Kennedy. And this is an extra special day as we are here to hear from a remarkable man and his story. He was part of the presidential motorcade on this day in 1963 from Love Field all the way through downtown Dallas, and then a few days later at the Dallas Police Headquarters, where literally he captured a moment. Bob Jackson is a Pulitzer Prize winning photographer and has been a longtime friend of the museum over 36 years. We are here today because Bob has also made a monumental, transformational gift to the sixth floor. He's donated his entire photographic collection of more than 15,000 historic images to the museum. And it's the single largest collection of photographs and gift that we have seen ever at this museum. This collection offers a culturally comprehensive look at life, society, news, and culture in Dallas through the 1960s and the 1970s. And it's an incredible lens through which to document decades of transition in a rapidly growing city. We are deeply humbled that Bob has chosen the Sixth Floor Museum as a repository for his life's work. It's an honor to be able to preserve this important visual history for the future generations. Thank you so much, Bob. And now I'd like to recognize his wife, Debbie, and other members of Bob's family who have traveled from all over the country to be with us. So if you don't mind standing so we can give you a round of applause. Thank you all for being here. And you're going to hear more this afternoon in this conversation that Bob's gift is also the impetus for a new special exhibition that will open in the spring of 2026. And it's going to present groundbreaking news, photography, and stories from the Dallas Times-Herald. So please plan to come back to the Sixth Floor Museum next year to see this extraordinary installation in person. And with that, I'd like to introduce Stephen Fagan, head of curatorial, who's going to lead Bob Jackson a wonderful conversation. Thank you.
Good afternoon, and thank you so much for being with us today on this special anniversary. And Bob, thank you for being here to share some of your memories of Dallas in the 1960s and 1970s.
Well, they say a picture's worth 1,000 words. So we have a lot of pictures to go through. So we won't say that much.
Well, Bob, you and I have actually done a number of programs over the years, but we've never quite done one like this.
Right.
Because while I'm sure everybody in this room is familiar with this image of Jack Ruby shooting Lee Harvey Oswald in the basement of Dallas Police Headquarters on November 24th, 1963, which won the 1964 Pulitzer Prize in News Photography, I bet you are less familiar with some of Bob's other images, like this one, a 6-day sit-in at Bishop College in Dallas. And beautiful winter landscapes in Dallas, including this icy image from 1974. And of course, human interest shots like this terrific photo of a collie's birthday party in October of 1960. I wish we had 6 or 7 hours together today to just go through Bob's images one by one. But we don't. We have 1 hour, and we have about 70 images to share with you today. But it should be a very remarkable journey. And Bob, let's start at the very beginning, even before you joined the staff of the Dallas Times-Herald, because you have told me on multiple occasions that you really owe your photographic career to race car driver and automotive designer Carroll Shelby. And we have a picture of Carroll Shelby right here that you took. How did that start for you?
Well, that was in 1957 when Shelby and Jim Hall opened Carroll Shelby Sports Cars on Yale Boulevard close to the SMU campus where I was going to school. And so I went to a race and I was hooked. And I came back and started hanging out there and finally Shelby called me three-quarter Jackson because I spent three-quarters of my time at the shop. And so I was really hooked, and I started buying an MG, then a Jaguar, and Porsche up the line, you know. Can't afford a Porsche now, even a Fender. Anyway, that's really what got me started, because I started photographing racing and covered the Pikes Peak hill climb, and I have many, many racing negatives, which you won't see today.
Well, they're seeing one right now,
Yeah.
one really good shot, but it's images like that really helped you secure a career as a staff photographer at the Dallas Times-Herald. And we're going to look at some of your early images prior to November of 1963, including this one early in your career when the circus came to town. This is the Ringling Brothers Circus in Dallas, and these elephants marching in September of 1960.
Yeah, they had just gotten out of their railroad cars and marched through downtown Dallas. And I was looking for something that would be good, you know. And when they were there, I kind of followed them a ways. And seeing the skyline, I thought, this is a shot. And it ran 8 columns in the paper.
These elephants actually marched right through Dealey Plaza, underneath the triple underpass on Commerce Street. You also photographed integration in Dallas, including the integration of City Park Elementary in South Dallas in '61. What do you remember about that?
Well, that was, we were, of course, outside the school. We weren't in the school taking pictures. And we were just, you know, shooting kids being brought to the school. And then all of a sudden, I looked up, and there was a little black girl, Hispanic girl, white girl, all looking out the window. And that made the picture.
Yeah, and this ran in Newsweek.
Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic image. And for you to be so young at the time, just so early in your newspaper career when that happened, to get a picture in Newsweek. You also photographed a lot of celebrities. We're going to see a lot of celebrities today, but we're going to start with this one, Bobby Darin and Sandra Dee during the production of State Fair in Fair Park in 1961. Now, there's a great story about this picture.
Yeah, he gave her cotton candy and heard my shutter click and looked at me and then came after me, you know, coming over. And somebody stopped him, but I was ready to clobber him.
Clearly didn't want you taking a picture of this intimate moment.
I don't know why he would care. You know, it was human interest. She was pregnant.
Mm-hmm. Most people don't know, but you actually covered John F. Kennedy a couple of times prior to November 22nd, most notably at the funeral of U.S. Speaker of the House Sam Rayburn in November of 1961, November 18th, just a couple of days, 2 years almost to the day prior to the assassination. Now, you're proud of this picture. Tell us about that.
Well, I was excited to get a photo of 3 presidents lined up. LBJ was one over from, he was not in line. He was one over from them. But I was happy to get this.
Yeah. You did get a sort of picture of 4 presidents that day. This next shot, we see at the far end there, Truman, Eisenhower. Then we see the back of Kennedy's head, and then Lyndon Johnson, who does not look very happy with you.
Yeah, I don't have a clue. In fact, he found the negative and printed this. I hadn't seen this all these years.
Maybe Johnson is unhappy that he wasn't in the previous photograph that he cut off to the side. We also see Texas Senator Ralph Yarborough there, who was in the motorcade on November 22nd, 1963. And speaking of that date, 62 years ago, let's talk about that. What was your assignment that day, Bob?
My assignment was to meet Air Force One at Love Field, photograph the arrival, and my chief photographer was taking the film back to the paper so we could get early pictures. And I was to stay there and then get in the motorcade. So, which I did. And I was in the 7th car behind the president. And
Let's talk about Love Field for just a minute here
Yeah.
before we get to the motorcade, this great photograph. Now, you had covered Kennedy, as we mentioned, but you had never covered Mrs. Kennedy before.
no.
Were you excited to do that?
Well, yeah. I was always excited to shoot somebody that high up.
Sure. Now, the time there at Love Field, prior to the arrival of Love Field, you had a lot of time to just kind of wander around, take
Yeah.
pictures, and you captured this amazing shot of the inside of the presidential limousine just moments before the motorcade. There on the far right is a United Press International reporter, Joe Carter, and I'm so happy to share with you that Joe Carter is here today. There is Joe. The last surviving UPI reporter who covered the Kennedy assassination. We're honored Joe and his wife came down from Oklahoma to be with us today to see Bob and to see this picture. Here's another shot from Love Field. We have this great image of Kennedy shaking hands. And who is the photographer on the right?
That's John Mazziota, my boss, chief photographer at the Herald.
Did you feel an obligation to take this picture since that was your boss?
No, I was really concentrating on Kennedy and the people reaching over the fence. John just happened to be in one of my frames, but I zoomed in closer to Kennedy and left John out.
Yeah. Well, it's uncropped. It's
But I
still
gave
a great
him
photo.
a print, you know.
Yeah. So as you mentioned, you were primarily using the motorcade as transportation to get to the luncheon, but you did take a few photographs along the way, including a great one on Main Street, this one right here. Crowds were pretty enthusiastic.
Yeah, they were. We were surprised they were waving at us.
Yeah, they're not waving at the president. They're
They
waving
probably
at...
already waved at him. But my assignment was to, whatever I shot in the motorcade, I was to unload the cameras and put the film in an envelope and toss it out to our reporter who was stationed at Maine and Houston. And so I remember thinking, they're not going to use, the paper's not going to use the pictures I'm shooting along the route. We had photographers downtown, so I knew they would be shooting crowd shots, so I didn't worry about it. Of course, looking back, I should have shot everything I saw, you know.
And one of your Times Herald colleagues, Bill Beal, was at the Adolphus and took this great photo of you in the parade. The gentleman in the trench coat whose head is cut off there, that's Tom Dillard, the chief photographer at the Morning News. And the two of you had a very important exchange once the assassination started taking place in Dealey Plaza. Take us back to that moment and tell us what happened.
Well, I unloaded my cameras and put the film in an envelope, probably just a minute or so before we got to the intersection of Maine and Houston. And we had a reporter there. I tossed the film, the envelope out, and the winds were gusty that day. And he missed it and had to chase it. And we were laughing, the guys in the car. We were turning the corner at that point, and we heard the first shot. Then we straightened out, facing the book depository, and heard two more shots. I told the Warren Commission I thought 8 seconds, first to last. As it turned out, they said 6.5, something like that. Anyway, 3 shots, that's all, 3 shots. Not 14, not 9, 3 shots. And
you look straight up in front of you towards this building. What did you see?
I saw a rifle on the ledge, and I said, "There's a rifle." And Dillard says, "Where?" And by then it was gone. But I pointed out the window, and he shot the close-up of the window. But even if I'd have had film in the camera, the long lens camera, I don't think I could have reacted that fast. Swing it up, find the window, focus, and shoot, because I only saw the rifle for maybe 2 or 3 seconds, something like that.
Very few eyewitnesses actually saw a rifle in the window of the book depository, and Bob is one of them, and that's what led to this photograph, the first news photo taken of the building in the seconds after the assassination. You got out of the car in Dealey Plaza, but didn't take any pictures before heading to the hospital.
Yeah, that was a bad mistake. But I did get out of the car. All the other newsmen in the car with me got out at the intersection. And I thought, well, maybe I better do that, because this is where the action is. And I got out. As soon as I got out and walked up, or ran up the grassy knoll, hearing the people, saying how bad it was, and blew his head off and all that, I thought, uh-oh, I'm in the wrong place, because I'm supposed to be in the motorcade. And that was just a stupid mistake. So I bummed a ride with 2 other photographers. We bummed a ride. They'd already let traffic go down over the evidence, everything. And so we stopped a gal in a car, and she took us to Parkland Hospital.
And that's where this photo was taken by another Dallas Morning News photographer, showing the 3 Times-Herald guys in a row. We see on the left your boss, John Mazziota, and there you are, turning your head towards the crowd, and then next to you is another Times-Herald staff photographer, Eamon Kennedy. Great shot of the 3 of you there, and all of you took a number of pictures when the announcement of the president's death was made, and this is one of those great photos. But Bob, you really didn't have time to kind of process what was happening, because you were on assignment.
I don't think any of us had time. We were just working away. And until a couple of days later, then we had time to sit down and talk about it, think about it, and realize that Dallas might end up with a bad reputation for a while, if not longer.
The rest of that weekend for you largely played out in the corridors, the very crowded corridors of Dallas Police Headquarters. You took this photo through the window of the Homicide and Robbery Bureau doorway. That door in the back there is leads to the office of Captain of Homicide Will Fritz, where Oswald was interrogated. But this picture does capture a lot of the chaos, the sadness, and the hurry up and wait attitude that really kind of took place along the course of that weekend. Another colleague of yours, another Dallas Times-Herald colleague who was there at Dallas Police Headquarters that weekend, is here with us today. Darwin, are you here? Could you stand up so we could recognize Darwin Payne of the Dallas Times-Herald? We're so thrilled you could be here. Another person who lived the experience of November 22nd, 1963. Bob, you captured some amazing photographs at police headquarters. This is one of the most powerful. We see Lee Harvey Oswald's wife, Marina, and mother, Marguerite. How did you manage to get such a great close-up picture?
Well, they were coming down the hall to get on the elevator. They were going to take them home after being questioned. And I thought, here's my shot. Here's my, this is going to make a picture, hopefully. And I got between them and the elevator door. And I was the only one that did that. Everybody else was behind. And it turned out to be a good moment. I came close to, when they opened the elevator door, instead of stepping aside, I thought about backing in and riding down with them to the garage, where the car was. And but I didn't. I kind of wish I had. But I think the police wouldn't have probably allowed it.
Well, you certainly got a really remarkable picture here. This is on Saturday, November 23rd. You also got a really good photograph the next day, Sunday, November 24th. So this is a routine prisoner transfer, Lee Harvey Oswald, from city to county custody in the basement of police headquarters. Bob, take us back to that moment and tell us how this image came to be.
Well, I was assigned, I was a Sunday man that week. I worked on Sunday and off on Saturday. And I got the assignment to cover the transfer. Normally, the transfer shot would have been, just a few people, not this crowd, of cops. All of these are cops. Will Fritz on the left, chief of detectives. Jim Lavelle, handcuffed to Oswald, who we became good friends. They came to our house. And over the years, we learned a lot of little tidbits from Jim about that day. And the cop on the far right, he retired and died of a brain tumor, I think, only a year or so after he died, I believe. But he's putting his cigar in his mouth. And Lavelle later asked him, why didn't you use that hand to help me? and he said, waste a good cigar. He threw it on the floor, he kept it in his mouth.
So you're there, you got your camera, you're ready to capture this moment, because you might not get a chance to photograph Oswald again until the trial, and then this figure jumps out.
Yeah, that's why I was glad to get this assignment, because once he got to the county jail, what's his name?
Decker
ran a tight ship, and I doubted if he was going to let us come in and take pictures.
Yeah.
So I was happy to have the assignment. And
when Ruby stepped out,
I was looking through the camera, checking my focus. I focused on about 10 or 11 feet. And I was watching them come out of the booking room toward me. And it just all came together. I couldn't have planned it any better. It just came together. He fired and I fired. Yep. And then I was concerned about, did I fire too soon, or did I click the shutter too late? Whatever, I had to go look at my film before I could visualize this picture in my mind.
Now, to give you a sense of how important a flash is in the basement, let me show you the next photo Bob took. Much different, much darker. Flash had not had time to recycle. We see Jim Lavelle swooping in. This is as they are wrestling Jack Ruby to the ground, a picture you rarely get to see that Bob captured. And then just a moment later, this image of Oswald being loaded onto the ambulance. Now, Bob, it was about a couple of hours, 2 hours or so before you actually got a chance to see the photograph you took.
Yeah, I called into the office, and Mazziota said, UPI is really anxious to get your film. And I said, I don't think that's a good idea. He said, they're willing to send a runner over. Well, a runner would have been on a bicycle, something like that, I'm sure. And I said, what if he gets hit by a bus? There goes my film. No, I'll wait till I get back. Mm-hmm. So I had to wait a while because they wanted to send another photographer out to relieve me so I could go back to the paper. So it was almost 2 hours later.
And here is the photo as it appeared on the front page of the Dallas Times-Herald, November 25th, Monday, November 25th, 1963. And Bob, this picture, of course, went everywhere, won a Pulitzer Prize, and your life changed forever. Let's take a moment, though, to look at this picture, because this is, of course, a different version. What we just saw was an image scanned from the original negative, but this is the image as it was prepared for publication in the paper. If we look at Jim Lavelle's arm there, we see clearly there's been some outlining done on his sleeve to really make that picture pop and be more clear as published in the paper. And there was an artist who did this work. We want to take a moment and talk about him.
Yeah, that was Abner Tardy, and he was our retouch artist. And you can see Ruby's suit with all the folds and all, that's all airbrushed. to bring it out easier to see.
Abner was quite an artist, and he would do other things. He would make these little figures when dignitaries or celebrities would visit. Here's one of his creations.
Yeah, Hubert Humphrey. And they would present these certain celebrities or well-known people when they came to town. They would, he did these figures for a lot of them. And he did this of LBJ, Barry Goldwater.
Arizona Senator Barry Goldwater, who was the Republican nominee against Johnson in 1964. This is in 1970, but an Abner Tardy creation. And Goldwater's having a bit of fun with this, and it goes a little further.
And this was in front of over 300 men and women, husbands and wives of Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association.
Yeah, and there's actually a few more pictures that we're not going to show you today. These are the tamest of the images of Barry Goldwater with this. Now there was, I mean, certainly a senator would not do something like this today in front of newspaper photographers, most likely. But there was a code in those days, and you had, determined you would not be publishing these.
Well, when we covered the event, the PR man said, "Don't shoot any pictures. We didn't really want you to shoot. These people get pretty rowdy." And so but stay for dinner and cover the story. So we were sitting there eating, and I don't know what triggered it, but he leaned over and said, "Oh, go ahead and shoot, because they might do something funny." And they actually had Barry Goldwater's son there, and he was about to get married, and they brought in bikini-clad girls to surround him, and he was kind of embarrassed. But yeah, so I started shooting and got these pictures. Yeah. And then I assured him we would never publish them. We would never. So 20 years later, I was covering a Republican women's meeting at the Broadmoor Hotel, Colorado Springs. And I said, I want that assignment. And I put the pictures in an envelope. I waited till the event was over, and it was just Goldwater and this woman who was escorting him around and me. So I went up there and I laid these pictures on the table.
I thought you were blackmailing him.
I don't know. Anyway, I said, "Do you remember these 20 years before?" And he said, "Yeah, that's me, all right." I thought that was hilarious. And then he didn't say, "I'm so glad you didn't ever publish these." He just said, "I've always had a good rapport with the press." And that was his way, I guess, of thanking me. But he didn't say, "Can I have them?" Yeah. So I still have them. Well, now they have them.
Well, Barry Goldwater really appreciated Abner Tardy's art there. And one last thing, he would use his airbrushing skills on photographs like this, drawing little caricatures. Bob has always wanted to honor the legacy of Abner Tardy, who passed away in the 1970s.
Yeah.
I'm glad we had the chance to share some of this.
That's a debutante on the right, Whitney Hyder from Fort Worth, and he put that little figure. Mm-hmm. And we don't have pictures of him, they do, but he made these little funny figures. I have 2 or 3 of them. Yeah. And he called them Fink Bobbers.
So getting back to our story for a minute, 1964, big year. We have the Jack Ruby trial in Dallas. Bob, you're called to testify, or you're subpoenaed to testify, but not actually called. But you did cover it as a photographer.
Yeah. They would let us into the courtroom, after the trial was over that day. And Ruby, who liked to talk, talked.
Yep. We do have a photo taken by another Dallas Morning News photographer. This is on the day of the verdict, March 14th, 1964. If you look in the left-hand corner, there's Bob Jackson looking at his camera. And Bob, what I love about this picture is right above you is your competitor from the Morning News, Jack Beers.
Yeah.
Jack took the other famous photo of Ruby shooting Oswald that day from an elevated position. And in this image from the day of the verdict in the Ruby trial, we see Jack Beers once again elevated.
He liked to get up high.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just slightly above you in there. Now, Bob, 1964, as I mentioned, was a big year. You covered the Ruby trial. You covered a number of events. You also covered a visit to Dallas by a group of young men from Liverpool. Here we have the Beatles. Now, Bob, were you caught up in Beatlemania?
Oh, kind of. I mean, I like their music. Yeah.
You got to photograph them in Dallas in September of 1964 when they performed at Memorial Auditorium. And you also covered them the following year in Houston, where you took some color shots. And this is amazing, this great color photograph of Paul McCartney and George Harrison there. They did 2 shows in Houston, each of which was attended by 10,000 people, and the concerts were 35 minutes long. Short concerts. But I would give just about anything to have been one of those 10,000 people. Bob, you were so close. You were right there at the edge of the stage. Crowd reacting pretty enthusiastically, I imagine.
It was, oh yeah. It was hard, though, to get a group shot because they were so spread out on the stage.
Yeah.
And I had to really zoom in on the different ones to get the best pictures.
Bob donated over 100 pictures of the Beatles. It's been a real joy to go through some of those. Speaking of fans, we have these young girls. Now, what is amazing about this photo, Bob, is that the Beatles aren't actually there.
No.
What are they screaming about here?
Hard Day's Night film.
This is a
That's
group.
in the Majestic, or I don't know which theater.
Yeah, it's the Majestic Theater, August of 64. They're screaming at a screening of the film, A Hard Day's Night, which kind of gives you a sense of the extent of Beatlemania at that time. Now, Bob, while we're on the subject of musicians, you photographed quite a few. We're going to take a look at just another 1 or 2 here. The late Karen Carpenter. You covered the Carpenters when they were at SMU in 1971. Yeah, you remember anything about that?
I really liked the Carpenters. Their music.
Yeah. And
I did photograph them together at a piano when we interviewed them, but this is the one that we're using.
Yeah.
They're very nice people.
The very next year, you photographed Sonny and Cher in Dallas when they performed with the Dallas Symphony at Memorial Auditorium in 1972. You got some great shots, particularly of Cher, and you said she was quite friendly.
Oh yeah, she was very nice. Well, she had just appeared on the cover of, I think, Vogue, one of the magazines like that, and we took the magazine there because she had not seen it yet. It just came out, and she was very appreciative of us letting her read and gave her the copy, I'm sure. Yeah, I don't remember.
Now, unfortunately, it wasn't always celebrities and dignitaries. You covered some tragic events in Dallas as well, including this one early in your career, September 1960. This is a Braniff accident at Love Field, right?
Yeah. Yeah, there was a crew of 3 working in the cockpit on the plane. And I guess it was brakes, right?
Yeah, the brakes failed, and it went right into the building.
Into the building, and it killed one of them. But I was frustrated trying to get what I thought would be the good shot, the best shot, because there was so much equipment in the way, to work on it. This really showed how bad it was.
Yeah.
Because of how far it went into the building.
Yeah. You also covered Quite a few floods in Dallas. This is July 1962, a shot of Northwest Highway, for those of you familiar with the area. This is after about 4 inches of rainfall. We were talking about this picture earlier, Bob, and you weren't quite sure how you managed to get this shot or how you even got out to that area, but it's a great photo.
Yeah, I don't think it was hard to get to the area because I didn't go through any flooding.
Mm-hmm.
It was there where the road was low. But I don't know what I was standing on because I was above it.
Here's a fatal car accident on Cockrell Hill, March of 1966. This, I believe this won an award for you.
Yeah, I think it did. News photo, first place.
And also, an event you might not remember was the cave-in on Elm Street. 200 yards of Elm Street between Griffin and Field just collapsed during the construction of One Main Place in 1967. My goodness, I mean, this is at street level. And then, Bob, you climbed up in a building and took that shot of Elm Street. It was closed for 7 months while that was fixed.
And then they built the bank.
Right, right. You can see construction, right there. And this fire at a bakery on Ackerd Street in 67, only you, Bob, could probably take a picture of smoldering ruins and turn it into fine art. It's a beautiful picture.
Well, just lucky to be in that spot at that time.
And that firefighter just kind of makes it perfect.
Yeah. It wouldn't have been as much without him.
Yeah. At the top of the program, I mentioned Bishop College, and there's a lot of great photos of this 6-day sit-in, the students protesting conditions at the school. And what we're seeing here is about 350 of them being rounded up and arrested. The Texas Highway Patrol was brought out to help empty that auditorium where the students were sitting in. And we see this picture here, but from the lack of uniformity among the way these folks are holding their guns there, it looks like they maybe weren't that familiar with riot gear in situations like this.
And they weren't told how to hold their weapon.
Yeah, clearly, clearly. You also, in 1972, June of 72, covered the very first Gay Pride Parade in Dallas, which originated at the John F. Kennedy Memorial, right behind the old red courthouse here. And Bob, we were talking about all the pictures you shot of this parade, and there's one in particular that you like, and I'm going to put it up on the screen. There's your favorite. Someone you love is gay. Really a lot of enthusiasm from that marcher there.
Yeah.
There were certainly moments of triumph and tragedy in Dallas, and one of the moments of triumph was the opening of Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport, September 20th, 1973. Tell us some of the people that we're seeing there.
On the left is Wes Wise, former newsman who became mayor, and Bob Cullum, and then I don't know that guy. Next one's Eric Johnson, another mayor, and the guy on his left looks familiar, but the woman on the far right is Mrs. Beach of Beach Aircraft. So she was pretty well known. Yeah. And the day of dedication of DFW is the day the Concorde landed for the first time. So this was a big, big deal for Dallas. And you see Eric Johnson in the center of this photo. Eric Johnson, of course, mayor of Dallas in the years after the assassination, really instrumental in helping to rehabilitate the image of the city after those dark days of November 1963. And your photo, Bob, just captures that look of triumph and satisfaction as Eric Johnson apparently is looking directly into the lens of your camera. Beautiful, beautiful picture here. He was always smiling whenever I ran across him. Yeah, maybe he just liked you taking his picture. Maybe. A lot of human interest stories, as I mentioned, including Six Flags Over Texas in its early days. The water flume, the log flume ride that we see here, actually the very first one in the United States was at Six Flags Over Texas. They're ubiquitous today, but the very first one was there. Opened in 1963, just before the assassination. And by 1968, it had become so popular, they built a second one. And that's what we have
hear these young kids getting excited at Six Flags. Speaking of water, another photograph you like. Tell us about this image here.
Well, I had gone to my car, which was in the parking garage to the right of this picture, and I saw this guy getting ready to jump, and he turned out to be an ad salesman for the Times Herald. And he was coming back to the office, and I couldn't pass that up. And so I didn't even have to get in my car and leave because I had my weather feature for the next day. So
we only have this one photo, so we don't actually know what happened next, but I don't think he made it across.
no, I don't think he did either. I don't really remember. I know whatever he did, it wasn't anything I wished I'd been able to get. I mean, this was the picture.
Yeah. Oh, it absolutely was. Wonderful picture. And for a feature story, this great photo of a farmer on his land on Hillcrest Road in Dallas. If you know the area, Hillcrest Road looks a little different today in 2025, but here's a shot of this farmer. Nice picture here. And Bob, you photographed a lot of animals over the years. We're going to look at a few animals. Tell us about this interesting photo in 1970.
Well, I just happened to be in the lobby of the Times Herald and looked out the glass window there, the big window, and there was this gal walking a duck. And, I mean, I didn't set it up or anything.
Not staged.
No, I just had my camera with me and shot these. She's just walking along.
Yeah, the 70s were a strange time, weren't they?
Yeah. I didn't ever see any other duck walkers in Dallas.
But you did photograph an assistant conductor of the Dallas Symphony Orchestra. Who's holding this young chimp here?
And that's Anshel Brusiloff, who was our symphony conductor for several years and had quite a career. I think he went on to North Texas and taught up there, and he did a lot for the culture of the spring.
Yeah.
I mean, the spring.
Yeah, Dallas. Yeah,
Dallas.
absolutely. And we have this little chimp here. This is Frankie the chimp, who is not to be confused with Spanky the ice skating chimp, who was part of the Ice-Capades at the State Fair of Texas in 1962. Bob, you took quite a few. It was really hard to pick a good picture of Spanky because there are several.
Yeah.
In fact, I chose two. I got this one too to share with you. Great photo there. And before we wrap up our look at animals, Benji, the famous Benji the dog, arriving in style for his movie premiere at North Park in 1974. There we go. Now, Bob, you're taking this picture in 1974. You ever think when you do images like this, here's a dog arriving for his movie premiere, you know, I won a Pulitzer Prize. Do I really need to be photographing animals and things like that?
Well, I like dogs.
So that works. But you were always so great about, I mean, you got the assignment, you went out, and you would shoot just about anything that came your way.
Yeah.
You took some really remarkable pictures. And this premiere of Benji the movie was a big deal. Art Linkletter was there, George Kennedy, a number of celebrities came to Dallas for the premiere of this movie in 1974. And speaking of celebrities, of the human variety for a minute, Bob, you made this collage for us of all these different celebrities you photographed. Tell us about some of the people we're seeing here.
Hugh Hefner opened a Playboy Club here. Some of you may remember. And there are some of his bunnies. And then Michael Jackson, I was covering a party for young girls, not a debutante, but a friend of all of them. And Skitch Henderson was playing for dancing. They were the band that he had brought in. And he said, we have a surprise for the evening. and it turned out to be the Jackson 5. That's how I got the Jackson before he started changing his face.
And who else do we have
And
here?
that's Gordon McRae. That was shot in California on the boardwalk where he had a boat. And then over on the left, Betty Davis in her dressing room. Then Ronald Reagan when he was in town. Rock Hudson with, interestingly, a bunch of young girls around him. And then Carole King on the lower left, and Audie Murphy, most decorated soldier in World War II. And then Charlton Heston, that was at the WCT finals, and there were several celebrities that played tennis there, competed well, and then Liberace last.
Wow. Wow, we could have probably done the entire show just with this one slide, but it's amazing the caliber of talent and certainly dignitaries that you photographed. Here's another one, Robert Oppenheimer, visiting Dallas just a few weeks after the Kennedy assassination, December of 1963. Oppenheimer actually asked at the time what it felt like to be in Dallas so soon after President Kennedy was killed, and Oppenheimer defended the city and said that something like this, a tragedy like this, could have happened in any city, anywhere. Several great photos you took of Robert Oppenheimer. You also took a lot of pictures of Bob Hope, mostly on the golf course, but here we have him at SMU.
Yeah, well, he was a big supporter of SMU. He was always doing things for him, and that's
yeah, this is the groundbreaking of the Bob Hope Theater.
Yeah,
in 65, opened in 66 the next year. And Jimmy Durante at the Miss Teenage America pageant.
Schnoz.
Wow, that's another great photo. So many wonderful pictures here. A local celebrity now. We have Stanley Marcus here with Helen Corbett. Helen Corbett, who managed the Zodiac Room at Neiman's for a number of years, also authored a number of cookbooks. And Bob, that brings us to Neiman Marcus Fortnight, this annual celebration of fashion and culture, and you covered a number of Neiman Marcus Fortnight events which brought celebrities from around the world to Dallas, including Princess Grace here, this beautiful color picture of Prince Rainier and Princess Grace of Monaco in 1971. Love this photograph. Another collage you made for us. Tell us about these people here.
Sophia Loren was in town. And I don't remember why, but probably was a fortnight.
It was, yeah, the fortnight she was here for.
And then Elizabeth Taylor and her then husband, Senator Warner. And that was taken at the Murkison home, the owners of the Cowboys.
Mm-hmm.
And that was, I think, maybe a fundraising event, but I'm not sure. And but it was a nice moment at that party. And then Prince Rene, realizing he's in a sand trap, and they gave me a golf cart, and I followed him around through his whole golf episode.
Yeah. One more celebrity image. This one a really interesting one, especially today. John Wayne brandishing a rifle in front of former Texas Governor John Connally. Now, this is September of 1972, so this is less than 10 years after the assassination, during which, of course, Governor John Connally was seriously injured. And here they are, less than 10 years later, kind of goofing around with a rifle.
Yeah. That's kind of funny.
Yeah, this was in Flower Mound. This was actually the opening of the Omega Arms factory, and Governor Connally and John Wayne, they were both given these ceremonial rifles at the opening of this factory. But a great shot of the two of them and the look on John Wayne's face.
The look on, both of their faces.
Yeah, you got to wonder what was going through Connally's mind when that rifle got aimed at him. Speaking of our story, again, tying it back to Governor Connally and also another figure from that weekend, we have Lyndon Johnson. And here we have Lyndon Johnson in kind of a Where's Waldo moment on New Year's Day, 1973 at the Cotton Bowl. And Bob, I don't think you even realized this until we spoke recently, but this is
Right.
just 3 weeks before
He
Lyndon
died.
Johnson passed away on January 22nd of 73. In fact, this was his last public appearance. He did a filmed interview with Walter Cronkite, but as far as being out in public, this Cotton Bowl game, January of 73, was the last time he was in public. You got a great photograph of him enjoying himself at that UT versus Alabama game.
Yeah.
UT won, for those of you interested. I couldn't end our look at Dallas history and culture in the 1960s and 70s without America's team. So here is quarterback Roger Staubach of the Dallas Cowboys. You photographed a lot of football games,
Yeah.
right?
I did. I got conned into doing the overhead shots from the press box, which I ended up enjoying. But I would shoot maybe as many as 20 rolls of film, and then I'd pick the best ones. I didn't bring my water out.
Oh, there's one right here for you.
Oh, okay.
Let me open it for you.
And, you know, just sitting up there when the weather was bad was nice. And the girls were bringing us drinks and snacks and all that. And I would just shoot a big pass play. A lot of you will remember probably where the quarterback's throwing the ball here and they draw lines down to the other edge of the page and the guy catching it or whatever. And I did that for 3 or 4 years.
You got some great shots, including this one. This is my favorite one. I really enjoy this photograph. You were given question cards when you came in today. If you have questions for Bob Jackson, if you'll pass those to the end of your rows, we'll collect those and take a few questions in just a moment. Bob, before we wrap up, though, I want to acknowledge that you were the co-founder of a publication, a subscription publication called the Society Section that ran in the 1970s. Tell us about the Society Section.
Well, the society editor of the Times Herald, a friend of mine, wanted to have her own newspaper, and subscription only, exclusive, which gave us advertising that couldn't be purchased through the regular newsstand newspapers. So she had another friend, who was the production end of it. The 3 of us owned it. And we started it in 72. The Times Herald gave us their blessing. We were never in the red. We were always in the black, making money. But it was a subscription only. You couldn't go to the newsstands and buy it. So therefore, we got some advertising that they were comfortable with being in a, like Neiman's.
Right.
And Cadillac dealer. And
you gave us so many terrific negatives from your days as part of the Society Section. Society in Dallas, fashion, automotive. We went through all of those. We wanted to have one representative example of a great photograph that Bob took for the Society Section. And so I present to you the best dressed men in Dallas of 1976. Bob, what were you wearing when this picture was taken?
Jeans and a shirt, probably. I don't remember.
Well, this is a great photograph, and this was taken on the steps of the Hall of State at Fair Park, if you recognize the background there. Do we have some questions for Bob here? Great photograph of you from around 1963 here. All right. History will always remember you for the picture of Ruby and Oswald, but what is the picture you took that makes you the happiest? A great memory.
Well, I guess in a way it makes me the happiest, but my happiest
Yeah.
were my racing pictures and meeting Shelby. Yeah,
Yeah, early in your career, those early pictures.
yeah.
Yeah, you were good friends with Carol Shelby.
Yeah.
You've told me about that many times. If you could have photographed one event or person that you didn't get to do, what or who would that be?
Oh, God. There's too many to name.
Yeah. Well, I feel like you photographed pretty much everybody in the 1960s and 70s.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't think of anybody in particular. I'd have to sit and think about it, and we don't have time.
Okay. Did you ever get the chance to meet Abraham Zapruder, who took some other
Never did.
iconic images from that weekend?
Never did.
Okay. Did you talk to very many people when you were here in the plaza in the immediate aftermath of the assassination?
No, not really. I just got from what I heard, what people said to me was that it was bad, that he was, and that's when I said, oh, I've made a real mistake getting out of the car.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when we bummed the ride to Parkland Hospital. If I had remained in the motorcade with my empty camera,
Mm-hmm.
I'd have been right there at Parkland when they took him into the emergency entrance. And so I'm not happy about that.
But you redeemed yourself in the basement of police headquarters on the 24th. I mean, you took one of the most significant news photographs of all time. So not a bad...
So I made up for it.
You sure did.
Yeah.
You sure did. Last question here, a really good one. How has life treated you since 1963? Have you had a good life, Bob?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Bob, it has been a tremendous honor to know you and to work with you and to spend hours and hours with you going through these negatives. The last question I have for you is a pretty simple one. How do you feel having your remarkable archive of 1960s and 70s history and culture here at the 6th Floor Museum?
Well, it's the only place they should be, you know, I think. I can't think of them being anywhere else or in my crawl space.
We're certainly glad they're not there.